Hey there, I am Christy Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of 2 six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well, then you're in the right place. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. This is Christy Ruffino, the host of the show. And if you are a first-time guest, I want to welcome you. Thank you for tuning in. And I encourage you to subscribe to our show so you catch every episode that we have out in the future. We usually drop a show every other week right now. We do have a special series coming up that you won't want to miss. So make sure you subscribe so you won't miss it. And if you are a long-time loyal listener, I want to thank you for staying connected and being one of our best fans. We have had the privilege of bringing in some pretty incredible guests. And today is another example of that. I get to share with you the incredible Brooke Kekos, and she is a very highly skilled relationship coach and rapid transformational therapist. She has had a very crazy journey from being in a generational cult to breaking free from that and now helping other people. She not only in this episode will share her story, but she also shares some strategies and some resources for anybody who feels that they're stuck in some kind of trauma, how they can break free and maybe move on to a better life where they don't feel so like stifled, and so that they can kind of let go of some of that trauma and have a free future. She's also sharing a special gift that we will be placing in our gift vault. And so you want to make sure you catch our show, go to the show notes on whatever platform you listen and grab the free gift, and feel free to connect with Brooke because she has a very, very, she's got an amazing business, and she has a long case record of helping a lot of people. And so she could help you too, if you are the type of person that she is skilled to help. So stay tuned. We will be right with you, right back, and you'll be able to meet Brooke and learn from her wisdom. All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. This is Christy Ruffino, and I am excited to have our guest today, Brooke Kekos. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on here and have a really organic conversation today.
We're going to have fun. We just had to do a couple takes because you screwed up, then I screwed up, but here we are. And we are in a mastermind group together, and we've kind of been in it for a while. And we just kind of talked about how, sometimes we're networking or we're around people, but we don't actually invest in them. We don't dive into getting to know them. They don't get to know us. And that is really one of my goals for having my podcast, is because it's allowed me to meet some amazing people and spend time with them. And I'm really looking forward to this interview just as much as I'm sure the audience is. But the first thing I want to ask you is about your story. We always start with story because story is our why. Story is what helps people relate to us. And I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and decide to follow this path. So what is the story that got you to be so passionate about this?
Yeah, I definitely did not wake up and say this was who I was going to be and what I was going to be, because I would have, 5 years ago, you couldn't have paid me to be on a podcast. I mean, I don't want to sit here and talk about my story or talk about myself. And now here I am talking on podcast and talking globally, right? So, but my story really comes from a space where I had to embrace new beginnings and change, because if I hadn't have, I don't know if I could be here to talk today, to be honest. I was raised as a child that was in a cult. So my family it was a generational thing that, they had been in it for many lifetimes, other generations, and my parents didn't know any different. And this cult was really highly demanding and controlling. And so our belief system was so structured, and it required so much of us to act in a certain way. And if we did not, it was like there was shunning, there was shaming, there was just so much of this demand, and we weren't allowed to use our own critical thinking. So I was told what my belief system was going to be. I was told how I was to act, what to dress, how to dress, who I was going to be. And I didn't really get to be free. I didn't get to like really, come into my own space. I had to act the way that my father in particular wanted me to act. And so my father was a very narcissistically abusive man. I didn't really realize it at the time until many, many years later, but he withheld love and affection, right? And gave reward with that. If I was doing as I was told, if I was performing, if I was acting like the perfect child or the good girl that I was supposed to. So it really created this space for me to feel like, okay, no matter what I do, I'm always wrong. I'm never right. I'm not allowed to find my authentic self or be who I'm supposed to be. I have to be somebody, right? And it just created this perpetual space where I just felt like I didn't know who I was. And I found myself chasing somebody's love and affection. And so I got really into it as a teenager. I wanted to be around boys. I needed that love and affection. I was craving it. I ended up finding someone that was in the same religion as me. We fell in love, of course, right? We're teenagers, young love. We fell in love and we ran off and got married because my parents did not want us to be together. And it's such a much longer story than that, but I'm going to keep it short and simple. But we ran off and got married. And I was in that relationship for almost 17 years and still within the cult. And the relationship was just as abusive, if not more. And it was really teaching me that I couldn't be my own person. I wasn't ever going to be enough. And I kept chasing that love and affection. I kept chasing it and chasing it. It didn't matter what he did to me. I kept staying there because I was afraid of the unknown. And it was also in the religion, divorce was really frowned upon. It was not okay. And so I just stayed in this relationship. 2017, though, my then husband found out that the religion was complete sham, that everything that we had been taught our entire lives was based off of a lot of lies. And realizing that we were in this control cult, I was like, oh, okay, like didn't really even know what to think. I didn't want to believe it. It was scary to think of the fact that we had sacrificed so much time. But I began to do my own critical thinking and research, and I believed him. And so we ended up leaving that cult. And at the same time, it really was an awakening for me because there was so much anger within him. He pulled a knife out and put it to my throat. And this was kind of this moment where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I still staying in this relationship? Something's not right. This is not okay. And realizing that I needed to get out, needed to get break free from both. So we ended up getting divorced. I find that I am completely addicted to the drug of an abusive relationship, as we call a trauma bonded relationship, right? And realizing that I was addicted to this drug, if you will. And I'm feeling the effects of this loss of him. And it's terrifying. It's terrible. I remember being very ill. and feeling like I don't know what to do. Thankfully, we had 2 children, and they really made me get out of bed every day. And I kind of went on my healing journey from there. I started to be like, okay, it's time to go to therapy. Something's not right. I got to fix this. I got to start going and getting back to me. And then in 2020, as I was doing that, I was also trying to heal, but there was still so much what I didn't realize until I was diagnosed complex PTSD. My body was in a perpetual state of fight or flight and fear, and my nervous system was dysregulated. I was not coping very well, and I was just trying to, survive really. But in 2020, when my ex-husband actually died from a drug overdose, the father of my 2 sons, the grief was absolutely horrible. It was the deepest sadness I've ever felt in my whole entire life. And I saw my boys grieve. And, as a mother, you're the mama bear and you don't want your boys to be sad. I saw that that was so difficult and so painful, but that really was another awakening for me to see that I had to heal on a deeper level. And it was like the universe was just shoving me to get out of the beauty industry. I'd been in the beauty industry for a while. I was very successful in it. It was a lot of fun. But that just wasn't my calling. My calling was to heal my own trauma, to help other women heal their own trauma, to help other women that have been in abusive relationships to break free from these relationships and then to heal the trauma that it's caused in their brain and their body. And it's not just the abuse, it can be anything from childhood abuse to sexual abuse to, it's really healing these childhood wounds that happened, this generational trauma, and getting to the root cause. And that's why I do what I do today. I just pivoted my whole entire life and created a new beginning and a new space of being able to help women see that there is another way. Like they don't have to stay stuck in this space. They don't have to feel like there is no way out. Because there was so many times where I felt that way in the relationship. I thought, well, I can't leave. He's taking control over the money. He's taking control over everything. And I was so afraid, but there is another way. Like we get really trapped in our head and we think that there is no other way out when there really just is. And that's why I want to help women break free and really stand in their personal power and find that again, right? Because there is a calling for that. There's so many women that allow these type of relationships to happen. And so that's really why I do what I do. It's definitely my big purpose and my why. It drives me every day to continue to be more successful, to help these women reach these women, and help them just really get back to themselves.
That is so good. So I know I've worked with so many women over the last, let's say, 10 years, helping them get their stories out there in the world. And everybody has a different story, right? Not everybody's stories are the same. However, I see it so often where our pain becomes our purpose, our mess becomes our mission. And this is just another example of you who took this crazy journey that was the beginning of your life, right? That's really all you knew up till that point. And then you started healing and you got on the other side. And instead of just living your life, you made it your mission to be vulnerable so that other people can learn from you and hopefully get out of their situation. So I give you a lot of credit because it's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's definitely not easy to be vulnerable, especially when you've like lived a lifetime of trying to protect yourself. Right?
Oh,
And then being vulnerable and just like kind of putting all of your feelings and your emotions out there and your truth is this this fear that can kind of consume you and be like, oh my gosh, if I tell my story, how am I going to be perceived? And that was a lot of my
mm,
story too. It was like in the religion, you're very judged, right? Everybody is judging everybody. And so I've always been this fear of like, oh my gosh, how is someone going to perceive me? How are they going to look at me? Are
mm.
they going to accept me? Or are they just going to think I'm weird and I'm different and I'm, and not accept me? So it's about being able to just share your truth and just be like, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about me. It's just about being able to break free from that societal thing where in that conditioning.
Well, and that's what it's all about is because I was with in a narcissistic relationship for almost 2 decades, and it's a slow process, or at least for me it was, where it was over time, my belief system ended up by being diminished, and their belief system took over my whole life. And then I started questioning what was real. Like, am I the crazy one? Am I the wrong one? Am I, all of these things that go through your head. And then when you do finally have the courage to break free, then you start thinking, well, what are people going to think? Why did I stay in it if it was so bad? Or was it really so bad? Or did I do something that to make it be that bad? And so there's so many stories that go through our heads. We know logically that it's not, they don't make sense, but emotionally we're still connected to them.
Yeah, completely. It's almost like we've been gaslit for so long within the abusive relationship. It's like we gaslight ourselves. And that's what I did a lot of times.
Yes.
I'm like, well, is it really that bad? It's not that bad. I can
Oh,
handle it, right?
right.
Like, I can suck it up, you know?
So
And I think,
true.
yeah, because a lot of women are, I feel like I always got asked that question. Oh my God, why did you ever stay? I would never stay. I'm like, well, you never experienced abuse all your life. That's all I ever knew. It was what I was, that was my familiar, right? I
Yeah.
subconsciously seeked the love that I didn't receive when I was a child. And so that part of my brain was taking over any logical sense that I could have had.
Yeah, so true. Wow. Yeah, and I know for me too, I kind of thought, well, you know what? I can do it. I can take it. I can put up with anything because I thought I was doing it for my kids until the moment where I realized, oh my gosh, I'm actually harming my kids more by having them being around this because, my son will grow up being just like that, or my daughter will marry somebody like that. And that was really my motivation to change, not for me, but for them. So I don't know. Do you relate to that at all?
I do in a lot of ways. I just saw that there was a lot of we tried to I felt like I tried to, protect them, right? But it doesn't matter. Kids feel the energy in the house,
They
right? They feel
do.
they feel the tension. They feel, they would see fights between us. Um, and it doesn't matter if mom is not happy, they feel that, right? It comes out in the way you parent. It comes
Yes.
out in your nervous system and you can't handle stress. And yeah, it was, everything that I've ever done is really for my boys, regardless. My boys are definitely the two things in my life that have kept me, getting out of these really dark places and realizing that I have to keep going because I never wanted them to not have a mom that didn't show up.
Mm. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for sharing your story here on the air in the podcast world for everybody to listen. But I know you have a big purpose as to why you're sharing it. And I know you've helped a lot of people. And so we're going to take a quick commercial break and then we're going to come back and you're going to share some of the strategies to help people if they think that they are. Oh, there we go. Guess look what I forgot to do. I forgot to silence my phone. There we go. So we will come back in a moment. So hang tight, everybody, and hang tight, Brooke. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Mastery Unleashed podcast. This is Christy and Brooke Kekos. And Brooke, I know you shared a really, really heart-wrenching story of what you went through, but you've come out on the other side and you have a mission. I see behind you on your screen background is you are a life coaching goddess. So I love that. And you help people get on the other side of their pain and have it fuel their purpose. And so how can you advise somebody right now that is completely in a position where they relate to your story and they can't see the other side? Like they don't know what the first step to take is. Like, what do you suggest how do they get started?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for that because honestly, I feel like in order to really help heal your mind, you have to kind of shatter it first. Like you have to literally shatter everything that you thought was true or that you thought that you needed, to really let go of the past, to let go of the trauma or the stories that you've carried within you for so long. Because Our subconscious is running 95% of your life
Mm,
every day.
yeah.
You're thinking the same habitual thoughts every day. You're doing the same habitual actions, behaviors every day. And if you do not choose to shatter some of the past and shatter some of the old ways of being that are no longer serving you, it is impossible for you to move forward. You become stagnant. And I always say that, everybody it's like nature, right? Nature changes, right? It goes with ebbs and flows, and nature knows when it's time to get rid of the leaves because winter is coming, right? It knows when it has to change and get rid of the old, okay? And then get the new again, right? When spring comes again. It's the same thing with us, right? We're always evolving and changing. And when we become stuck, that's when we realize, okay, we're continuing to do the same habitual things every day and then not even realize that we're not consciously aware of them. So to really reprogram that subconscious, we first have to see, okay, well, what's in that subconscious? What is our programming? What is our conditioning? What is our belief system? And is it even ours? Is it even our belief system, or is it our parents, or is it, like you said, your partners, right? Like you were in a relationship where you were like took on their belief system. So really identifying how do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And then being able to get really clear on how you want to move forward and create new habits, new behaviors, new patterns, so that you can set yourself up for the ultimate life.
So, but people can't just do this on their own, right? Like, is there like, where do they go to get help in this area other
Yeah,
than call you?
right, other than comedy, right, exactly. So obviously, we are in our subconscious mind every day, all the time, right? We just don't realize it, right? You drive somewhere, all of a sudden you end up at your destination. You're like, oh my gosh, I was not even paying attention. Well, your subconscious mind took over. It knew your destination, right? It knew where you were going. It got you there no matter what. And so that's why sometimes you've ever done that where you're like eating and you're like, why am I even eating? I don't even know why. Well, you just subconsciously did it, right? And so it's the same thing, right? We have to become very aware of ourselves, be able to witness our thoughts, our behaviors, and look at them, reflect on them. So, yeah, in some ways, I feel like you can do some of that programming and really get clear on that. But I always think we need guides, right? And it's like
Mm.
when the student's ready, the teacher arrives, right? Like we need those coaches, those healers, those hypnotherapists, and those people that are going to help us guide us through to see what we need to discover within ourselves, because we can't really always see the forest through the trees. And I found that very much so in my journey. I started out with traditional talk therapy. Not knocking traditional talk therapy, it's a great source for a period of time, but when you have extreme complex PTSD, you are having emotional flashbacks from the past and there's trauma that's stored in the body, and that cannot heal that. And so I was feeling stuck, and I was realizing, oh, I need to go deeper. And that's when I found hypnosis, which it was able to access those parts in my mind that was recreating those same patterns and recreating those same emotions. And I had to be able to rewire my brain. And that's really where neuroplasticity comes in.
Mm.
That's why it's so important, right? Our brain is moldable. It is able, you are able to change thought patterns. And it's just about becoming more aware of them and being able to break free from those old habits.
And so I like that you kind of are breaking it down, that there are different types of support you can get. And the traditional talk therapy is good, but it's not going to, like you said, change the wiring that's in our brain. So hypnosis is one avenue. Are there other avenues for people to go down with when they're looking for support?
Yeah, so EMDR is another one. I've actually experienced that myself as well. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, I think it's called eye desensitization processing, something like that. But it basically changes. So if you have a trauma, it basically changes how you react to the trauma. You become neutral to the trauma. Because what happens is when you do have severe trauma, and this could be even little trauma, you are going to be re-triggered often, and things are going to re-trigger you, people are going to re-trigger you, and then it can actually re-traumatize you. So when you can allow yourself and your brain to become neutral to the trauma, it doesn't affect you the same way anymore, right? And that's why, you know, that people talk a lot about war veterans, right? I mean, they actually really truly believe they're back in war when they get this with this, you know, emotional flashback from the past. And it was the same thing for me. And it's about being able to that becomes neutral. They don't feel that anymore, or that re-triggering and that traumatizing feeling again. And I think that's really necessary in the to do this type of work, to be able to help people with this. But it's also like energy healing, right? Because the actually trauma is stored in the body as well. So I think somatic practice is really important. And that's just really being able to help the body understand, like, we don't have to get re-triggered. This is especially powerful for sexual abuse victims. And it's something that I've had to do for myself, because I, you know, I suffer from that as well. So it's just, you have to be able to see that you have to look at things holistically, and
Mhm.
it's not just going to be one thing that's going to help you on your healing journey. It's going to be multiple things that you're going to have to incorporate, because your body is multifaceted. So,
Yeah. And one of the things that I learned from a past guest is the generational trauma. And there could be somebody that doesn't think they have the trauma, like, you know, "Oh, I don't remember anything in my life." And maybe there is something that's buried that you forget, right? But then there's also stuff that maybe happened in the past that is somehow, which I don't understand it, but I believe it, has been passed to you, and you're still manifesting the results from that trauma.
yeah, that's
It's
completely true.
fascinating. It's
It
so
is.
like
And
there's studies about that.
it is, yeah, it is fascinating, because it's in your genetics, right? But it's also like people will forget entirely that they were sexually abused and remember years later, because your brain has the beautiful capacity to not allow you to process things that would have been too overwhelming in the moment. And so when someone says to me, "Well, I don't really remember a lot about my childhood, but I think I had a fine childhood. Everything was fine." And then we get into hypnotherapy, and all of a sudden they're like seeing trauma they didn't even realize that they had, and emotions are coming out, and they're seeing things that like they would have never known before. Well, you're creating from that space. You just don't know it because your
Yeah.
subconscious mind hides it, right?
Right. Wow. Wow. So do you work with people remotely?
I do, yeah, and most of the work that I do is through Zoom. I have people here in my local area as well, but I do mostly through Zoom, and it's really powerful because people are able to be in their safe space, right? Instead of going to an office where it's not familiar, at least they're able to be in their bedroom, they're able to feel comfortable, and they're able just to allow themselves to go on the journey and experience what they need to experience, so that they can move through whatever is keeping them stuck in life.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you. This has been really enlightening for me. And I want to thank you for sharing your story again. And thank you sharing some of the wisdom around this so that our audience can, again, not feel so alone, and then maybe be inspired to do something and then know what to do. And you have a free gift that you're going to share with the audience that we have now. We're going to put it in our gift vault. You want to explain what the gift is that you're sharing today, Brooke?
Yeah, of course. So it's really about learning how to thrive with healthy boundaries. This was me, right? I think this is a lot of people. We don't have healthy boundaries because we have maybe had, you know, some wounding in the past, and we feel like to be accepted and loved, we have to sacrifice or abandon parts of ourselves. And this is really about, how do you develop that really like unstoppable self-esteem, like having that confidence to say no, right? And only do what you need and want, right? And then really creating that emotional stability. Because when we're not emotionally stable, we're going to see how our emotions drive our behaviors, and sometimes it does it negatively. So that's really what this ebook is for. So, yeah, I hope you guys all take advantage of it.
Yeah, well, thank you. So if you learned anything from Brooke today, first of all, go down to the show notes, grab her free gift, connect with her. We'll have her contact information in there. And if you took any notes from what she shared today, please share it with somebody you know or somebody you love, because we all know that if we share, we retain more. So please do that. And of course, if you like our show, please go to whatever platform you listen and show us some love. But before we end, I just want to take a moment to once again thank Brooke for being on the show. And I really, really appreciate you. I really appreciate the work you're doing. And, we had a fun time. We didn't have to do it again. We didn't have to take any more takes. We were able to wrap it up.
Exactly. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and be in this space with you. It was awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We will see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.